The third industrial revolution.
The great disruptions in economics are not really new businesses, which is what the Austrian School of Economics believes. Instead, they are new infrastructures, i.e., from letter deliveries to the telegraph, from horse and cart to the steam train, from internal combustion engine to electric vehicles, etc. These are changes to our infrastructure. Another one is when gas lights were replaced with electric lights. When these changes get to just 3% of the economy, it's all over because of the sheer rate of change when they're on these exponential curves. When Germany recently got to 14% of solar and wind production, the fossil fuel provision collapsed because the investment community switched sides to renewables. The USA, it's envisaged, will hit 14% itself in about 2023, and globally it will be about 2028, and that's why we think that 2028 will be around about the time the fossil fuel industry will collapse. All the industries that depend on fossil fuels will also be stranded assets. Communications companies are coming off nuclear and fossil fuels to secure their data centers because they don't want to be dependent on fossil fuels when it collapses. This includes Facebook, Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, Apple, etc. They're all off fossil fuels. They also don't have to worry about war or someone blowing up an oil pipeline because they're not using the fossil fuel industry anymore. They've switched to renewables. Currently, 2.5% of vehicles that are sold are electric. And don't forget, we've said once it gets to 3%, then it's all over for internal combustion engine. They will be just as cheap as petrol vehicles by 2023, and by 2028 they will be cheaper, and they will actually make up about 20% of all of the vehicles sold. So by 2028, 20% of all vehicles sold will be electric, fully electric. I'm not talking about hybrid models. Volkswagen have committed 80 billion euros to support electric vehicles and will work with Bechtel to build 35,000 charging stations across Europe. BMW and Daimler are doing something very similar. BMW, by the way, has an electric vehicle that will use no rare earths and can run 450 miles on a new charge. However, due to car sharing, we estimate that 80% of the world's vehicles will no longer be needed. The auto companies will make and keep the vehicles and allow access to them via provider user networks. We will go from 1.3 billion vehicles to just 200 million, which will be a massive reduction, and a massive reduction in use of resources. We use 93 million barrels of oil per day globally. 2/3 of it goes to transport. So we are moving to driverless autonomous electric vehicles, and they will be shared. Instead of a car moving one person just 1 hour per day and then just sitting there in a car park doing nothing, shared vehicles will be running 24/7, They will move 4 people at a time and using algorithms governance to automatically take people to where they are needed. Solar and wind energy will make running a car zero marginal cost as well. No need to make payments for petrol every couple of weeks. So you're running your car, these cars will be run using energy that you're getting from your buildings, so there's no cost for petrol. That's a huge saving for people. They will also be made with 3D printed recycled materials. This will be a lot cheaper and lighter than previous models and requiring less energy to move them. And this is going to happen within the next 20 to 25 years. This was all helped by governments mandating this change, like the EU's 20-20-20 vision, where 20% of the economies of the EU are using renewables. And cooperatives were given premiums for sending energy back to the grid. This led to the cooperative innovation that we've seen, as well as the technology costs coming down. Another example of a government that's helping with this change is that China is currently digitalizing its state grid, costing $80 billion. And they also dropped the cost of solar and wind even more, so we don't need subsidies. So the governments are acting and then the market is following. $11 trillion have come out of the fossil fuel industry in the last 4 years. It's a stampede. First, it was the ESG, the environment, science and governance industries that divested, as well as the universities. But now, the pension funds are roaring into the game. And we're going to have a look at that in the next video.
The third industrial revolution.